In order to hit a jump, you will... All right. I'm pointing all this way. Wide takeoff. It's fine, let's go. Good day folks, I'm really excited today because we're gonna do some fun, easy switch tricks for the beginner to intermediate freestyle skiers. We're gonna do some kind of tricky things like switch 180, 360s, even how to switch lip slide on some tubes. So that's kind of hard. For you who are kind of advanced, you may still learn some stuff here because we're going to talk about different takeoff techniques for switch rotations, when they're good and when they're not so good. So let's hit it. Alright, we're going to kick off this video with how to ski switch. I know it's technically not a trick, it's a technique, but we're going to go through it quickly anyway. First thing to have in mind is the body position. It's super important. Chill in the ski boots and have the feet slightly closer together than normal. Makes it easier to angle the skis together in unison. If they're wide apart, it's much harder to do. So close together. And then the position from the side looks like this. Notice how I move the feet first, the hip, and the shoulder, and then I could see a fair bit here. So it's incredibly important to point the hip, like open the hip this way. And remember, you have a massive blind spot behind you. So it's incredibly important when you start practicing this that you do it on a super flat slope. I want you also to do this, because people often get confused with which shoulder they want to look over. So you use the hand to point where you want to go, and then you turn that way. And then you swap the feet and the hip, everything is twisting, and then you turn the other direction. So pointing all this way, turn is starting, and then the other way. Notice how my hip really twisted. Feels pretty good. You really got to have some patience here in the blind spot when you're looking up. And then you can just skid back to straight. It's absolutely important that you are on a flat slope, and this is going to come easy to you. Once you can ski like I did on a super flat one, move to a gradually steeper slope. Here it's super nice and wide and very few people as well. And add a bit of speed is actually going to help you. Check it out. Use some patience, loving it. And switch skiing is sick. You really close the turns to control the speed. And then as you get more comfortable with it, you can attempt to carve those switch turns by using the knees while in this strange position. Oh, that is a bit too slow to carve. Come on, speed. And when you carve this way, it's really weird. And you really gotta use the ankles. Carve the other way. Whoa, it's kind of tricky. All right, once you got down those skidded turns, you want to learn how to carve switch, or at least how to do skidded turns while looking over the same shoulder both directions. What's weird right now, you see how I'm really twisted here. If I'd lift this foot, the ski would go out, and you really have to turn that ski this direction in order for it to stay a parallel turn. And while you're in this position, it's really hard to get much angle. So you're not going to get too much angle that way, and you're going to get much more angle the other way. It's going to look something like this. Let's get some angles in. Curving along-ish. And this is a difficult turn. And then the easy turn.
What is kind of tricky is when you're looking over the right shoulder like here and turning to the left, I try to angulate the knees, but I'm basically just tipping into the turn. But when you turn the other way, you can actually angulate the body a wee bit. To be honest, it's easier to carve when you look over one shoulder than the next one like here. But I didn't have time to show it in this video.
Once you can look over one shoulder doing these slow carves, Just gonna gradually increase the speed until you can go fast enough to hit a jump while looking over one shoulder, just like this. This is my favorite shoulder. And this is going to take a lot of hard work for you to get down, to do loads of practice before you start hitting jumps, like we're going to do now. Switch popping in a traverse. So look over the downhill shoulder. Start pushing ourselves on the switch pop in a little carve.
Imagine that the ski boots are a springboard, that you have this normal ski position, bounce off them shins, and then it's gonna look like an ollie, but I'm not thinking about that at all. It's just a consequence.
All right, so here we got a nice little side hit where I'm gonna have a nice gentle pop so that hopefully I land perpendicular to the landing, just like this. Little speed.
Just like when popping in a traverse, have a nice ski position, pop off those chins so that you land nice and perpendicular in that landing. To be honest, I typically teach switch 180s first before moving into zero spins, but in this video I thought it made more sense this way.
It could be hard to learn by yourself. Learning a fun group setting in one of our freestyle camps for adults this winter, spring, or maybe next autumn. See you then. To get the basic switch 180s in, do it on the side of a slope, make sure no one's coming, and you can get it pretty well. Sunset helps, obviously. Okay, here we got a nice little side hit here on the side, getting into switch position. Sick. And to come in with a clean carve. Oh, you know, you can start absolutely tiny, like here. Boom, let's freaking send it. Cool. So we're going to do a little switch 180 now. It's still important to keep the feet pretty close together, because if they're wide it's easy to like get this nose caught on an edge. It's not so nice. Start really, really small with little speed, just like this. Okay, this is not so small. This is how I'm starting because it's a nice jump for it. Gentle carve, actually unnatural. So switch 180s. First thing to have a look at here is how to take off. There are two major ways of doing this. It's the wide stance takeoff and it's the carved takeoff. What is good about the wide takeoff is the following. Since you're wide like this, you can use the hip and the lower joints a little bit more to generate a shitload of rotation. This is a technique I would do if I would chuck like a switch 1080 or a switch biospin, because it kind of helps to set off that crazy biospin motion. The con of the wide takeoff is, for beginners, it's often hard to have the right timing with the end of the jump, and they leave that ski in the kicker dragging behind, and that can really mess up your trick and knee joint. Not good. That's why with beginners I often like to teach them, even if it's a little bit trickier in some ways, to do the carve takeoff. Because if you carve with a pretty narrow stance, it's much harder to catch an edge, and you can let the skis even skid a little bit at the end of the takeoff. Ideally don't skid, but it's fine. So the pros on the carved one is mega smooth. It also helps to do switch corks, because you can kind of lean into the turn just a wee bit to get that nice switch corks in. But the con is it's kind of hard to carve, switch, and when you're carving, if you use the hip too much, try to wind up too much, you will stop carving and you can skid. So you got to choose when you want to do which technique. So when you want to do switch 180s or 360s of bigger jumps, I try to be quite careful with the pop. It's more of a motion where I'm like standing up tall. From this motion you kind of extend the back, and that helps you go from the jump that's going to tilt you like that to the landing, so you hit it somewhat perpendicular like such. I also think about it when I'm like carving, and I just have this, it's such a gentle motion that I'm just standing up a little bit more tall. But actually I think switch 540s is easier, because then instead of standing tall, you can go with the carve a little bit in this direction. You just start corking it instead. But that's something for another video. All right, so we'll try a little switch carve 180. It's okay if you have a tiny bit of skid, as long as you keep your feet close together. If they're wide, you're going to catch that edge, so be careful. I'll have a tiny bit of wind up, but basically it's not much from the hip, because if you use the hip too much, you're going to lose the carve and skid instead. Check it out. So just a little bit with the shoulders and arms. You don't need to spin much for 180. Over this roller, I'm going to demonstrate a switch 360 with a wide takeoff. I'm doing a 3, so I actually can show you how I get a bit more rotation doing it this way.
With a wide takeoff, as I'm riding into the jump, I wind up with the hip a minimal amount, and a bit more with the arms and a little bit with the shoulder. Not too much, because you still need to see where you're going. As you pop at the takeoff, pop evenly upwards from both legs, but the right leg in this case can push away to set off that quick rotation. Just like I'm doing here on this Switch Bio 10, and my cousin is doing on this gnarly switch dub.
So now I'm going to challenge myself with this wide takeoff on this little side hit. See if I can do at least a switch 5. And maybe you can see that I can use the hip a little bit more and really push off from that outside foot, generating more spin.
I love this little drill, to just challenge yourself. Spin as much as you can off a small jump. It's a lot of fun. As you get better, try doing it off slightly bigger jumps, but increase the size of the jump slowly, and you'll have a great time doing switch 3s and 5s and 7s in the future.
Okay, so switch box slide. This is quite exciting to learn, and it's important that you have a really low box where the jump goes straight up onto the box, so you can't catch the tails. And then we're going to start practicing to get towards the switch lip slide. So what I want you to have in mind, just like the pop, the normal switch key position, and basically because the hip and the shoulders are already pointing towards the box, we need no wind up. Check this out. Just key backwards and then pop, and you twist the feet. And I'm ready now to slide the box, as long as I had enough pop that I'm perpendicular on it. Enjoy it, and then to straight. I have a small distance here, so I can just ride straight towards the box. No turns needed. This is important. Get that position right. Have a nice pop. Wow, how sick wasn't that? So what I have in mind here is have this nice switch key position. I really look at the end of the box, pop, and then I just twist the feet 90 degrees, bam, and I'm ready to slide it. What's so great about doing it this way is that when you do this onto a higher feature, like we're gonna do soon, you want to see that the noses are gonna be over the box, because the last thing you want to do is to tap the noses into the box. But do this a few times until you get the hang of it, and then you can also start hitting it from the side, which I can't do here because the jump is too narrow. Alright, when you want to hit a higher box, make sure that it's very low. Maybe my skis are my poles, not the opposite, poles on my skis. So you pop, lift the noses, and then you see that the noses are over the feature, and then you twist them on, just like this. So I'll do a little switch lip slide. Gonna make sure I'm skiing quite close to the feature, and I'm just gonna basically twist the feet late and nice, and then I'm gonna come out to straight because I think that's slightly easier.
Once you get the switch lips down, I suggest play around with it, have fun, because tricks feel really different if you do like switch lip, back swap versus switch lip front swap compared to when you ski straight onto the features.
Hope you learned some of these 5 easy, not so easy tricks. If you didn't, you could always join one of our freestyle camps for adults. If you're a little worried this Corona winter, you could always do it late spring, like April, or maybe in October, November next year. Anyway, I hope you liked it. Give it a like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. Ciao.